Let's celebrate this month. Let's celebrate this week. Welcome to the Big Weekly Blend podcast, the companion to our Big Weekly Blend magazine. Hey everybody, welcome to the Big Weekly Blend show here on Big Blend Radio. The show airs every Sunday as a companion to our Big Weekly Blend magazine, and we like to celebrate upcoming holidays. Yeah, all those weird and stupid ones. I do say stupid, I shouldn't, but there's all kinds of weird ones and good ones like Pizza Month that October is, but also related historic happenings. We look at pop culture happenings, and today we get to welcome October because it's October 1st. So we're going to look at some of the monthly holidays. We're going to look at some of the upcoming holidays of the week. And of course, I always say go to the show notes for a link to our page that we put up on our site that gives you a list of the holidays of the week. It gives you a reading list for the week. It gives you a music playlist and everything that relates to what we're talking about and what's happening the week in that week, and even related articles and podcasts and recipes. We all like recipes, right? So check that out. And of course, all the links to our special guests on the show. All four of our guests today are part of Big Blend. You've heard them on the shows before. I'm going to start with Glenn Burrows because he's over in England and it's late over there compared to where we are in the States. Glenn is a family history expert and the owner of Norfolk Tours. And you know what? Anything you want to know about England, Scotland, and Wales, just call Glenn. Anything about researching and digging up the past, those skeletons in your closet, call Glenn. Go to norfolk-tours.co.uk. So welcome back, Glenn. How are you?
Hi, yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Hey,
Good
you
to
know
be
what?
here.
It's good to have you here. And Glenn is on our show every fourth Saturday. And last month he was talking about living history in Iron Bridge Gorge. And this month he'll be talking about railroad history of England, which is going to be exciting. But Glenn, I think we're going to talk a little bit of some of the ghosts we've talked about over the years, right? Today, some ghosts
Yeah,
and
October is always a good time to talk about such things because it starts to get dark early. And, this time of the year is always a little bit sort of spooky if you go around some of these old places. Like, we've got hundreds and hundreds of old churches like the one behind me. The one behind me is over 1,000 years old. I got married in it 40 years ago. And it's over 1,000 years old. It's got Roman bricks in it, So
ooh,
we've got so many ancient things, but especially up on the North Norfolk coast, we've got a story all about a big black dog called Black Shuck, and they do say that if you see him, you're going to die. So he's not the sort of thing you want to see because you're not long for this world if you see him.
well, that's really nice because today, October 1st, happens to be Black Dog Day here in America. So I wonder if you sent Shuck to the States.
Well, I think lots of places have got stories about big black dogs, and Norfolk has got this one called Black Shuck, and you hear so many different stories. He's supposed to be about as big as a donkey, really big, a really big sort of furry dog, I don't know whether it's true because I don't know anyone who's seen him, but then no one would tell me anyway because they'd be dead, wouldn't they? So,
Right.
Wow. Well, I just took care of a big black Great Dane called Mr. Hanky Panky, and we went walking in the woods together every day with the cat, Mr. Reuben, and it was quite cool. Nothing bad happened to us.
Good for you. I mean,
I'm
we've got
alive.
so many. We've got so many ghost stories in Norfolk. As I think I've covered in the past, we've got Anne Boleyn's father is supposed to ride through the countryside with headless horses drawing his carriage. Why they have to be headless horses, I never have understood. But,
How are they going to keep drawing that?
Well, exactly. But everything's headless. I think it's something to do with Anne Boleyn. We've got the brown lady of Rainham Hall, and she's supposed to be walking around with her brown dress. And there's supposed to be a picture of her coming down the stairs in Rainham Hall, all these sorts of things. But there's just so many of them because we're surrounded by old, spooky buildings.
I love that. I love that. I want to bring our next guest on, because I know they've got a little bit of travel behind them. And I know Peggy's got the spirits to go with. She's got the healing waters, as they call it here. And I just learned from a tasting. But I want to bring Kathleen Walls on. Kathleen is a travel writer. She's an author. And I encourage you to go to her websites and you go to for her books. And she's got she's got all kinds of travel guide books. She's got ghost books. Go to KatyWalls.com. That's Katy, KatyWalls.com. For travel writing, follow her at AmericanRoads.net. And you're going to be hearing a lot more of her on the show. I know we're going to talk about music because she's got a music book coming out, all about the American music, actually the beginnings of it and the history of American music. And but I think she knows about ghosts because she's from New Orleans, and you got some ghosts of New Orleans
there. And actually, right now, first off, let me say, Glenn, I was wondering how you would put a harness or a bridle on those headless horses.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking of a holiday that's kind of not exactly a holiday, but it's kind of an American thing. And I think he deserves a mention. The October 1st is Jimmy Carter's 99th birthday. And
oh, wow.
He lived in a haunted house at one time. There's a place in Plains called the Rylanda House. And they lived in it. And when I first discovered it, when I was getting ready, I was working on my Georgia Ghost book. And I wondered, if it was really a true story and could I do it? And I contacted one of their PR people, and they said, oh, yeah, that the Carters definitely admitted that they had seen things. And in that house, there was a white dog rather than a black dog. So I don't know if it was good or bad. And there were Union soldiers, and there were all kinds of things. One of the children discovered loose bricks in the fireplace in the attic. Every day the fireplace went up into the attic, and they discovered these loose bricks and found out that they had 2 secret rooms. So possibly maybe it had been used on the Underground Railroad at some time.
Wow.
I don't think it's ever been known. But it's not open to the public at this point, but I'm hoping that Plains Health, one of the Plains organizations, has bought it. So I'm hoping that they will eventually open it to the public.
Wow. Is it in your book?
It's in my Georgia's Ghost book. Mm-hmm.
And she's got 20% off all month, right? If they go
I'm
to
doing 20% on all month, and you've got to order them from my website though, because I can't do it on Amazon. But if you go to my website, and they're already way marked down because I have a big stack of them in my closet, and I will autograph them and send them out.
Awesome. So okay, so I want to go over to Peggy Fiandaca and her husband Kurt own and run LDV Winery out in Arizona. So I think that takes a lot of chutzpah to be growing a vineyard, making wine out in the desert, but they do it, and they're celebrating 15 years this year of doing it. There are tasting rooms in Scottsdale. The vineyard itself is in the foothills of the Chiricahua Mountains. So if you go to Chiricahua National Monument, you've got to go check this out if you can, by appointment only, right, Peggy?
That's correct. Yep.
So the website is ldvwinery.com, and Peggy's on our show every first Wednesday, Wine Time with Peggy. And this October, she's going to be talking about desserts and wine pairings. But welcome back, Peggy. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Yes,
Hey,
we love the fall.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Are the temperatures cooling down?
Yeah, I think we're hitting only 101 or 102. And
No.
believe it or not, when you've been in Arizona for a very long time, 100 or 102 makes a huge difference, and it is beautiful. I mean, on our patio at our tasting room, people are sitting outside on the patio at that degrees.
Very nice. So I want to know, being out on the Chiricahua foothills, right? So there's so much history. You've got Geronimo, who was captured just around the corner in Fort Bowie.
Right.
This Fort Bowie is like this amazing historic fort. The history there is, they say that Fort Bowie and Fort Union are 2 of the most prominent forts in the Southwest. I don't want to go into the whole history of the Bascom Affair and the Apache Wars, but I could. But very fascinating. Geronimo's captured there. Of course, you've got Cochise. It is in the Cochise stronghold, and they've got a graveyard at Fort Bowie, which is not far from Chiricahua. They've got the graveyard in Chiricahua National Monument that I've been to as well. But going out there, so much history in the Apache Wars, having been there. Do you ever feel that kind of energy of like people have stepped foot here before me?
Oh my goodness, yes. We have 40 acres, and 20 of those acres are natural riparian area. And we have Ash Creek that runs out of the Chiricahua Mountains in that riparian area. And every time I go hiking in that creekside area, I uncover artifacts. I have uncovered, I have 6 metates, which are
Mm.
stone grinders that are museum quality, and I even actually have the stone as well as the metate. It's just an incredible connection that we have to the history of the area. And so that's very important to us because our
Mm.
wines are place based, and we honor that history that we have on our property and protect it.
Oh, wow. And by the way, if you go down around the corner on October 31st, Tombstone has I was going to say a killer um, ghost walker, ghost night, and Nancy and I went there, and I have to tell you, I have some very interesting photos that came from our ghost walk in Tombstone, Arizona, not far from you. And you also celebrate there's a Day of the Dead that comes up
Right?
in Tucson areas. We've been through that too. And so death is not so much a freaked out a thing in Arizona. It's more of a celebration.
Right.
With with the Mexican culture and the Spanish cultures there, that it's a celebration of life, which I think is a beautiful thing for people to know about. I want to go to Linda Ballou, not last but not least for sure, and she's joining us with a new podcast as well, her Lost Angels Travel Adventures podcast every third Wednesday. And Linda, you've traveled the world and across the country. We touched a little bit about headless horses, and you're a horse rider. Look at her book. This is all audio for people, but Embrace of the Wild is about Isabella Bird and, her crossing through Colorado on horseback. So she didn't do that with a headless horse at all.
No, she did it with Birdie,
Yeah.
her mare that she dubbed, the Queen of the Ponies, with the steel legs. And she rode 800 miles with Birdie through the Front Range in 1873, the Front Range of Colorado. And she was born in October in 1831, and she rode through the Front Range in September, so it was fallish. But I think she went into a little bit of October because she was riding in the snow, and she was going, from Denver up to South Park and, the mountainous areas. She was like up, she was as high as 10,000 feet riding. I mean, through weather that was just unbelievable. But I just drove in her hoofprints through those places and all through the Front Range where she went. And I went to Estes Park. And right now, Estes Park is celebrating the 150-year anniversary of her arrival in Estes Park. And she is considered to be the mother of the Rocky Mountain Park because of her writings, A Lady's Life in the Rockies. She drew not only me, I'm a travel writer following in her footsteps, but thousands of other people came to Estes Park because of her, because her writings were so powerful and so beautiful. So they right now are having a play reproducing parts of her book. And the first third, she also rode in Hawaii. She wrote a book, 6 Months in the Sandwich Islands. And so one of the things that they're doing in Estes Park to celebrate her is a Hawaiian woman is coming and putting on a performance for her, reenacting. So I would have loved to be there, but I just, I traveled through the Front Range last September, and I just didn't feel that I could pull it off to go there again this year, but I'm definitely there in spirit.
Well, I wanted people to know you can keep up with Linda at lindablueauthor.com and also lostangeladventures.com. But Glenn, this is a connection, another English connection. We always find them, right? So,
Right.
Isabella Bird.
I want to know if Glenn has heard of Isabella Bird.
Yeah, Isabella Bird was actually born on the 7th of October. So we're talking about the first week of October too, 1904. She died on 7th.
Right.
She died on the 7th of October, 1904, in Edinburgh, Scotland. She was 72, but she was born on the 15th of October in 1831 in Boroughbridge, Yorkshire, Glenn. So
right.
we got a little English connection, but Linda, tell him that there's a BBC production, right? That he can watch because he's in England, but the rest of us here in the States can't, which sucks. So can you tell the BBC to get on with it?
First, let me ask Lynn, are you aware of Isabella Bird?
No, but
Really?
I know Boroughbridge. I've been to Boroughbridge.
But you've not heard of her. See, it's surprising because she was the best loved travel writer of her day, and she gave many talks, and she was inducted into the Scottish Geographical Society, the first woman. So I thought she was fairly well known there, but yeah, I mean, even when I went to Estes Park, not everybody's heard of her there either.
No. I mean, this is the trouble, isn't it? That people who are well known in certain circles are not necessarily well known outside those circles.
Right, right.
I mean, like I say, we actually went to Boroughbridge probably a couple of years ago, but I don't, because that area is where James Herriot, the vet.
Oh, right, writer. Yeah.
So that is why we went up to Boroughbridge, because my wife loves the James Herriot.
I do too.
Well, I was honored to be selected as the Isabella Bird expert in the BBC docu-series. I wouldn't call it a documentary. It was really, more for entertainment than information. But 3 actresses, English actresses, came over here and to Colorado to reenact her journey, the one that I just described to you, through the Front Range, and her climbing of the Longs Peak in Estes Park. And they interviewed me. I have 4 minutes of fame there in the docuseries. It's called Trailblazers. It is a series that's focusing on empowered women who have been overlooked in history. And those are people that I've been attracted to, that I've written about. I've done a couple of historical fiction novels, and I've selected stories about women who I felt were overlooked or forgotten. Yeah. So anyway, it's called Trailblazers, and I don't know if it's still running over there. I know, I don't think they're going to air it here, unfortunately, but it's called Trailblazers.
Glenn, call them. Call them, Glenn. Call them. Give them a hot rod.
I'll do that.
Yeah, really. So I want to go through some of the holidays with you all, because I think this is so much fun. What we have, and obviously it's fall and destinations change, and but some of the holidays of this month are going to be fun to talk about. I mean, we've already got some ghost stories going on, and some historic, we're going to absolutely have to put Isabella Bird and Linda Blue, and we're going to have to put Katie list for this month for sure. So October 1st, I know it's Black Dog. Let's just go to the month holidays to really get to it. Okay, it's Adopt a Shelter Dog Month. I think that's very important to take care of dogs that have been put into, been displaced. Let's put it that way. But I want to go to Katie because it's Country Music Month. And that's got to be a big deal, because I know that you love country music. You just came back from Bristol, Tennessee.
Right.
And you're writing your music book, so country's got to be in there.
Definitely is. In fact, just coming back from Bristol, and just before that, not too much, but like last year, actually, the Country Music Hall of Fame, Nashville. And there's so much in Nashville, you can hardly ever get it all in. But the Country Music Hall of Fame is, one you've got to get. And Bristol, the birthplace of country music, maybe because it's smaller and that's what you're focusing on, it's almost more intense than Nashville.
Mm-hmm. And I think the Carter family lived out there,
Carter
didn't they?
family, right? And then not too far from there, you go to the Carter family fold, and they have acoustic folk music performance there. The band, I'm trying to remember something, White Mountain people, and one of the young ladies in the band, talking about dogs, she had the cutest little Yorkie dog, and she'd get up, everybody got on the dance floor, from little bitty kids on up to people my age and older, and you just dance whatever you wanted to do. It's, just various acoustic music, and it's very informal. And she would get out on the dance floor with her little dog, and she'd be dancing maybe with some guy, but she's holding her little dog out there on the dance floor.
See, it is okay. It's adopt the dog from the shelter, but I want to say, little dogs, don't be afraid to adopt a black dog this month. Okay, don't. Just gonna say that. But Katie, do you remember? Because I know you and I've had many discussions about music, especially with you growing up in New Orleans. Do you remember the very first country artist you saw?
The one that
live
converted me from rock to country was George Jones. He was singing Window Up Above. And I happened at the time was going out with the guy who later was my first husband, who was from Mississippi, and he was very much into country music. And I got very, very hooked on country music at that point. I had seen George Jones perform live at the Grand Ole Opry in the past too. And
okay, so we know what to play to make Katie smile. Little George Jones.
George Jones will do it.
I know, Peggy.
All kinds of music. I mean, I grew up when we were kids, and if you ride the bus home in New Orleans, then you would go down Bourbon Street. It wasn't, just pedestrian as it is now. And there would be, aside from all the strippers, there would be jazz bands playing. Pete Fountain would be one that would always be playing there. Al Hurt would be playing there. And then the other thing in my life growing up, Fats Domino lived in Ninth Ward, which for a time I lived in Ninth Ward too. And it was not at all uncommon to see him driving around in his pink Cadillac. It was just, nowadays people would be swarming him and, oh, there's a star. But then it was just, there's Domino in his car, just sort of everyday life.
All right. So, Peggy, what about you? Do you like country music?
I love country music. I listen to it every single day. More the contemporary country music. But even though I'm a city girl, and didn't grow up, I'm from Chicago, so I have a jazz background, jazz and blues.
What about
which
Chicago
I also
blues?
love.
Dude,
Yeah.
Chicago blues, don't even get me started on that. That's
I
a
know
whole
it,
other
right?
conversation.
Whole genre.
Oh,
But I like all genres of music. But
but now you're from Chicago, so wait a minute. It's Pizza Month. So what
Yes.
happens with the pizza? Now, our good friends are in Chicago right now, and they said they're from Holland. They come over every year, like once or twice a year, and they photograph our neon signs to keep them preserved as they keep getting taken down across the country. That I talk about a piece of Americana that just keeps getting. Anyway, they finally had their first deep dish pizza last night, and they said, I don't know how anybody can eat a whole deep dish pizza. And so they found a homeless person and gave it to them. But they said it was delicious. I mean, how deep is a deep dish? Like,
Yeah, I grew up on deep dish pizza, of course, and it is. Pizza is one of those foods that has tremendous history. Since we're talking a lot of history, I mean, it dates back to the 1600s or 600s that you can find pizza or flatbreads or whatever, and everyone argues about who makes the best pizza. In the U.S., it's big rivalry between New York thin crust pizza and then Chicago with our deep dish pizza. But even, Detroit has their own way of having pizza, and it's a fun thing. And of course, pizza goes great with wine, and that's what
we great with anything.
Yeah, so October with pizza, and you got to get a great Grenache or Pinot Noir to go with that pizza.
oh, I like that. So now in Arizona, like I don't remember doing too much deep dish because I think that's a little heavy for the desert. but I remember getting like Mexican style pizza, like some jalapenos on there, some spiciness on the pizza.
Right, right. Yes. But we have some pizza places like Pizzeria Bianco that was rated #1 in the country a few years back. So we have become known for our pizzas in Arizona, and people
Hmm.
travel. I mean, people traveled, chefs and everyone else have to go to Pizzeria Bianco when they come into town because it is so not world renowned maybe, but at least across the country as a great pizza.
Well, we're in Asheville, North Carolina right now, and we discovered a pizza place called Piazza. And you buy the pizza, you eat the first slice, then you put it away, and you get it with onions and mushroom, whatever your thing is, right? You take it out the next day, heat it up or not, and the crust has gone sourdough. And let me tell you something, like seriously, it's the best. The sourdough, like I'm like in a whole new world about sourdough pizza. And it goes well with wine or beer or coffee or just cold. I listen, pizza to me should be like it should be at the top of the food pyramid.
Yep. I agree with you.
Six,
I agree with you. When you come to visit us at the winery, we do have a wood burning pizza oven down there. So,
are
Yeah.
you serious?
yep. So
Oh,
we will
okay.
make
Now,
you some
do you
pizza.
play country music and Chicago blues? Like,
We play Chicago blues when we're eating our pizza and drinking our wine. So you
oh
bet.
my gosh. Okay, we can't wait. We can't wait. Linda, I want to know what's going on in your neck of the woods for pizza.
I gotta say, I just had a marguerite pizza yesterday. I like the really thin with the basil tomato. I mean, I'm not a
She's in
connoisseur,
California, see?
but yeah, I love pizza just like
Now,
everybody else.
what's going on in England for pizza, Glenn? Do you even get decent pizza there? I can't remember when we were there that we got pizza.
There are pizza restaurants, but I mean, they're just run of the mill chain restaurants. The trouble is we're being taken over by chain restaurants, and it's just not any good. Talking about pizza, one of the best pizzas that I've had was a friend of ours used to make the pizza, the base, out of a cheese scone recipe. And that was delicious because it was a cheese scone base, and then you had like pizza topping on the top. So it was the best of both worlds. You had a cheese scone and you had the pizza
Well,
topping.
For Glenn, everybody, a cheese scone is at the top of the food list.
Yeah.
Like it is at the top. That's at the top for him.
Guess
That's
what?
the
Guess what I had for lunch today?
cheese scones.
I had a cheese scone. My mate, my mate I had to take my mate to hospital, and
Oh,
I had to wait for a couple of hours while he was having a procedure done, and their cafe actually had cheese scones, so I just had to have one. I just had to.
were they decent? Because
They
you're
were
talking
all
about
right. They
in the
weren't.
hospital.
They weren't as good as Diane's, but they were
Well,
homemade pizzas. I'm sorry, cheese scones.
oh my gosh. Well, this is good. Kathleen, do you have I got to do the pizza round. We
I'm
can't like leave
thinking
Kathleen out
my
of this.
favorite piece, we don't have much right here in Clay County, but the favorite one I'm thinking of is near Atlanta in Woodstock, a place called Vicentes or Vigentes. And every year, the gentleman's from Italy, Sicily, actually, and every year, twice a year, actually, he takes a trip, goes back to Sicily and brings the water back to make it with Sicilian water. So it would be accurate. And it is some fantastic pizza.
See,
Was it, Kathleen, was it a square or a rectangular pizza?
I don't remember if it was or not. We shared, it was on a press trip, and
Okay.
it's a whole group of us sharing several different pizzas. And they were all very, very, very good. He just kept bringing them out to the table, and we just kept digging until we couldn't eat anymore.
Because Sicilian pizzas are typically rectangular or
It
square.
could have been because he wanted to be very, very accurate. And he was being from Sicily and growing up with that pizza tradition.
Yeah. Fun.
Listen, I've also got to bring up that it's also National Apple Month. So, Peggy, apples and wine. Now I have had apple wine that they mixed with like another white wine and it turned into a different wine, like at a winery in Julian in California years ago. The winery is no longer there because the gentleman passed. But I have to say it was really good. I have never been to a winery that mixed wines like right in there and said, now taste this, almost like a new cocktail.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You can ferment just about any kind of fruit to make wine. You can ferment apples and make apple wine or strawberries or whatever it might be. The fun thing about grapes and wine grapes is that when you ferment there's some apples.
Glenn's got apples
there.
When you ferment wine grapes, it tastes like anything but grapes, which is kind of fun. And that's the great thing about winemaking.
Well, what about when you're looking at apple pies and things? And I want to talk about some of the destinations. I'm sure Linda's been to, places with apple land, apple orchards. I don't know, because she hikes everywhere. And then Katie, I don't know if you've been to apple country, but
think of a good apple and well, it's not exactly a ghost story, but L&J, Georgia is considered the apple capital of Georgia, kind of. And they have an apple festival. And they also have the Bigfoot Museum, which is more like a research. The guy swears he has actually seen Bigfoot. They've got all kinds of exhibits. Whether you believe it or whether you don't, it's a very interesting museum to go. I shouldn't call it museum because he doesn't consider it it is a museum, but he considers it also a research facility where they're studying Bigfoot.
Oh,
so
wow.
L&J's kind of got a little something spooky, and if you think Bigfoot's spooky, and apples.
Well, hey, apples, but there's so many destinations that somebody hears a crop. That's Julian, California went from from gold to apples to then having wine. So I always found that apple country and wine country go hand in hand. It's a very interesting thing because you have apples in your backyard.
Right. We have I think 6 or 8 apple trees. I can't remember in our orchard, and southeastern Arizona grows beautiful apples.
Apple Annies.
Apple Annies. Yeah. Even though this year their trees got frosted, so they didn't have a big crop at all. But when you're thinking about apples and desserts with apples, like a apple crumble, which is very common this time of year to make an apple crumble with the cinnamon and just wonderful apples. You want to pair that with something that's going to accentuate the flavors of those apples. So I would go for like a fruity Zinfandel. Would be wonderful, or a dry Riesling would be beautiful with your apple crumble. You don't want to do a real sweet wine with something like apples because apples are high in acidity, so you have to balance the acidity, and you don't want to overpower it with something really sweet. But it pairs beautifully with wine.
I want to ask Linda Ballou an interesting question because I know you just come back from Hawaii and you lived in Hawaii and you've written books and stories about Hawaii. Right. But I saw a photo about like mango apples or apple mangoes. I don't know if I saw something incorrect labeled at a farmer's market, but it's like a fruit fest over there.
Yeah, I'm not sure about apple mango, but what I did was a chocolate farm tour, and in that farm they had a tropical garden, and they had all the mangoes and papayas and dragon fruit.
Oh, that's cool for Halloween.
All sorts of exotic tropical fruits. And part of the tour, they had tasting stations where they gave you little bits of the different tropical fruits, as well as bits of chocolate from around the world. So it was a pretty cool tour. As for Hawaii, they're very, there's, a lot of people grow their own food. It's very expensive to live there. So they are, and they're vegan, a lot of vegans and a lot of, orchards and, it's the garden aisle, things grow there, gigantic. Mm. So, but I really don't know anything about apples in particular.
No, it's not everybody has to know everything about apples on the show, but I think it's interesting about Hawaii because of so much abundance, and it seems like you can have these. It's not like they have 4 seasons like where we are,
No, it's beautiful all year round, really, honestly. I mean, they do have a little bit of a rainy season, And every day it is the tropics. So in any given day, you might get an afternoon shower. On this particular tour and other tours I took there, they provide umbrellas, so that you don't get caught out standing listening to someone, share their information. And they have covered stations for things. So but it can rain there any day. But that's what the plants love. That's why everything grows there. Like a plant that we have here in California will grow twice its size there because it gets the moisture. Right. It's just a perfect climate for plants. That's why it's the Garden Isle. And one of the pieces I want to write is a garden roundup for Kauai, because there's, there's like 5 really spectacular gardens there with a different reason to talk about them. One of them is just the indigenous plants, nothing introduced, which is an interesting garden. And by the way, there were no blooming plants in Hawaii except one red blossom. All of the flowers in Hawaii were introduced.
Are you kidding me? In the whole, in Kauai?
In ancient Hawaii, before people came and started introducing things there was the lehua blossom, which was a bright red blossom. And that was really the only flower. There were lots of ferns and different types of plants that they used medicinally and otherwise, but not a lot of blooming plants, flowers.
Wow. That's fascinating. Well,
the Lemihuli Garden is fascinating because it's 1,300-year-old taro terraces, and it's very authentic. It's very, it got flooded in a couple of years back, but they have re-established it, and it's a really wonderful tour if you're interested in the history of the islands.
Very cool, Glenn. You've got apples. It's apple season. So are those from your yard?
No, these actually came from the King's Orchard. We went picking apples at Sandringham on Sunday, and these were taken off the King's trees with permission.
You stole the King's apples, you naughty boy.
I did not go scrumping. I got them and I paid for them. And these are called Bramley, and they are the dessert apple that you make apple crumble with. But I eat them because I love sour apples.
Me too.
You can't see them. There you go. You can see them. They are absolutely gorgeous, I tell you.
Yummy. Oh my gosh.
But they're the King's apples.
Wow. So I remember as a kid going out in the backwoods of England and picking berries and crab apples. And then when the fall came, or autumn came, we played knockers with the chestnuts.
Conkers.
I better not say knockers.
You hadn't better say knockers in England.
Yeah, really, really. That's what I thought.
Oh, dear.
I got
You're getting your knockers crossed with conkers.
Don't be saying that either, Cliff. But now, so conkers, tell everybody what that is. And it does start in the fall, right? Isn't it? There's because when they...
Yes. Yeah, we have conker trees, which are horse chestnuts, and they have a conker inside a green fruit. Mm-hmm. And what you do is you pick the conkers and you make a hole in the middle and you put a piece of string through it and you hold the conker up, and someone else has a conker on a piece of string and they try and break your conker with their conker.
It's just a kid's thing. This is just how I grew up. I don't know.
It's the person who ends up with a conker in a whole conker is the winner, because everybody else's conkers have broken to pieces because they've been back.
I was always the winner of conquering. But hey, but that's part of the fall thing, is looking at, it's easy. I love that Linda was talking about gardens, because gardens really change. And Peggy, I know, especially you being, a winery owner and understanding that there's so much that happens in life. And we've gotten to this point of cutting everything and being so meticulous with our gardens to the point of not letting our pollinators grow, take all the leaves and put them away. And pollinators actually live in those leaves, and like butterflies and fireflies and things like that. And so there's something to be said about the fall and understanding the cycles of nature and maybe embracing nature during the fall, and keep your bird feeders with water if you can, things like that. There's ways to work with nature, but we don't have anything without nature. Wouldn't you say that, Peggy, as a vintner?
Right. We're so connected to the land, and how we grow our grapes is so critical. And I think anyone can learn from their garden on how to take care of it. For us, our soils are so critical to the health and the quality of our grapes. And so before our plants start to go dormant, which will happen in October, starting in November, we do an analysis of our soils to make sure that we replenish the nutrients in the soils, because they've been producing great grapes all summer long. And so some of those nutrients get diminished, and we add those nutrients back into the soils before they go dormant, so they can really continue to thrive. And we need to do that with our own gardens, and we need to think about the soils in our gardens, because soils worldwide are disappearing. Quality soils worldwide are disappearing. And so if we can each do our little part, and I'm saying don't add chemicals to your soils, but really analyze your soils and add nutrients that are going to strengthen them, not destroy them over time.
Katie, as a travel writer and traveler, do you go to gardens?
I do, and I even try growing things. The thing I want to grow the most are the big juicy tomatoes. Growing up in New Orleans, we used to get what they call Creole tomatoes. Well, in Florida, and you go in the grocery store, you get plastic tomatoes, and they don't taste like anything. So I've been trying to grow them, and that is so difficult to do without. And I try not to use chemicals. Last year, I tried a little German hybrid plant, and I got a few. Our seasons have been going crazy because we'll have hot weather and then drop down to cold weather. We're up over the hundreds. I know in Arizona that's nothing, but when you get over 100, all the newscasters get all excited. And then we've had days, one day it dropped down to 28, which is really unusual in Florida.
That is wild.
It's wild.
Linda, what's it like in California? Because you've had wild weather.
I live in the mountains, okay, and my mountains think it's spring now, because we had a huge rain a couple of weeks ago, totally out of season, a really soaking rain, and I was happy for it, because that ends the drought for us, and we're in a very high fire place. So, but now, it's kind of weird. I go into the park and it's all green, when normally this time of year it'd be very dry. As for my garden, I'm on naturel. I have a pretty big piece of land here, and no fencing off the animals. And I have this Amazonian fig tree that's the biggest tree in the canyon, and it drops pigs periodically.
So I
get coyotes come in to eat the figs. I get tons of birds, and I even had a bobcat in here the other day. And my own personal garden, which is my oasis, is all the indigenous plants, like butterfly bush and Mexican sage, which draws the butterflies and the birds. And so I love where I'm living now, because I'm living in the trees and in a very natural state. So I'm happy here.
What's it like right now, Glenn, for folks to know about going to England during the autumn or the fall season?
It's really pleasant at the moment. We're at the end of the summer, so the temperatures are still relatively nice, and the weather is generally September, October can be really nice weather-wise. We haven't had a lot of rain, but if we do have rain, it's come and gone. You can always put an umbrella up or put a coat on. It's only water, as my mother always tells me. I'm not made of salt, so it don't really matter. So really, this is. I always find that sort of the end of April, beginning of May and then the September, October periods in England are sometimes the best periods to travel, because you've got everything is still going around, especially in sort of April, May time, you've got all the flowers coming out. But in the autumn time, you've got all of the color still, you've got all the greenery, but you've also now got all the leaves turning color. So you've got the beautiful autumn colors, So really those times are a really great time to travel in England. And it's not too hot,
No, I've heard
in
that you
England,
guys
it
are,
don't get that hot.
I heard that you guys are celebrating Halloween now, and you never did when I was there as a kid.
We never used to celebrate Halloween hardly at all. But now it's the American ideas have come over, so we do get that.
We came back. We came back home.
Yeah.
We came back over. Well, it's interesting to me. We've got jack-o'-lanterns. Everybody starts getting those gourds and jack-o'-lanterns. So just for fun, if you were going to carve a jack-o'-lantern, and I know it's actually not that easy, what are you going to carve? But I don't want to hear about any political figures because I don't want any drama on the show. But we probably would all do the same people. I don't know. But without naming a political figure, what would you do? It could be a horse, it could be a headless horse. It could be a dog. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a person. Who would you carve on a jack-o'-lantern for Halloween? So let's go with you, Katie. I have a funny feeling you have one.
I don't, but I would do a cat. I'm a cat person right now. I mean, I love dogs too. I like almost any animals. I'm not fond of coyotes because they eat cats. But other than that, I'm fine. I'd probably make a cat and put some ears on it.
Yeah. What about you, Linda? I'm thinking horse.
I like Cocopelli. I love him.
Yeah.
I love him. He's the, I forget what we call him, but I just love his image. So I would carve a Cocopelli.
Well, he's kind of like the trickster in a way, but he was like
he's a trickster. He was a ladies' man, I believe. He was, a magic flute would draw the ladies and things like that.
He's like the Native Americans' Pied Piper,
right?
In a way, yeah. That's a good one. And you see that? Did you get connected with the coke? Well, you get them in California, obviously, but when you go into Arizona, the Cocopelli, and you see more of that in Arizona. And you've done some travel in Arizona.
You talking to me? Yeah, I've been to Sedona. I love it. Actually, I want to go back. I have some friends there. I'm planning on coming in the spring, Peggy, so maybe I can, come your way.
She's in Scottsdale or a tasting room. That's not too far from Sedona.
Oh, yeah. My friends live in Scottsdale. So, and I would like to get back to Sedona. Actually, I would love to go up to Monument Valley, Canyon de Chelly. I mean, I really quite like Arizona. There's a ton of wonderful stuff there, and it's close to me. So yeah, I'm thinking March.
Cool.
Perfect.
Cool. Beautiful time of year to go.
I will. Yeah. No, I absolutely will. I'll bring my friends. They love wine. They're from Santa Rosa, where he was a member of the wine clubs up there. So yeah,
I'll bring my pals. Bring them.
Bring them. Yep, we'll turn them on to Arizona wine. I like that.
Yeah. No, I'm sure they'll be more than happy to be turned on.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Peggy's wine, I have to tell you, Nancy and I, in fact, where we are right now is the first time it was a couple years ago, I think now, Peggy, that we tasted Peggy's wines, and we had dinner with the ladies that were pet sitting for, and literally I sat down and it's our first meeting of them. And I just said, I just need to be left alone for a little bit. Her wine is extraordinary because she does work with the earth, and it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary, and it's supposed to be sipped and savored and enjoyed with friends, and just it's beautiful. It's exquisite. They will enjoy it. They really will.
Well, I'm a dedicated wino. I haven't had a mixed drink for years. I love wines. So
there you go.
I'll be looking forward to meeting you, Peggy.
Fabulous.
Okay, so Peggy, are you what's going on your jack-o'-lantern? What are you carving?
Well, that's a tough one. I think I love witches.
Yeah.
And so I think I would do a gnarly snaggletooth kind of witch on my jack-o'-lantern, potentially.
I like that. Now I'm thinking Wurzel Gummidge. What
Yeah.
about that? Wurzel Gummidge. What do you think? I could do Wurzel Gummidge, Glenn.
You could definitely do Wurzel
Please,
Gummidge.
please tell everyone who Wurzel Gummidge is. So,
Wurzel Gummidge was a scarecrow. I don't know if you have scarecrows in America, but he was a scarecrow. He came to life. But actually, funnily enough, Peggy has just stolen my jack-o'-lantern, as you call them, or pumpkins. But I was going to put a nice witch on because I'm of the generation that remembers Samantha Bewitched.
Yes.
And she was gorgeous, so I'm going to have her on my pumpkin.
that sounds really good. If anybody just tuned in right at that spot, that sounded really good. So I love it. I think this is the fun time of the holidays. Whether you believe in the holidays or not, all these crazy holidays, I think it's fun to just do something silly and have fun. And, even different, spiritual and religious beliefs, to do something new and different is fantastic. So we've got into that. Now, all right, there's Chili Month. There's Physical Therapy Month. Oh, I like Bully Prevention Month. That's a good thing. And then International Walk to School Month. Okay. I'm a fan of this. I'm a big fan. I walk to school a lot. Anybody, Glenn, did you walk to school? Well, you're in the same village. It couldn't have been that far.
Yeah,
right?
we used to bike to school. It
Oh,
was
see?
our school was about a mile away.
And so you didn't have the problem of, oh, my parents dropped me off, don't see my parents. What is that about kids
We never had a car when I was little.
What?
We never had a car.
Well, you didn't need one, did you?
No.
Really? That's wild. Like in the States. Okay, so even Linda being in California, everybody needs a car.
Yeah, it's a car
much.
culture. You have to have it, whether you want to or not. You have to.
Yeah,
it's a little bit. Did you ever walk to school, Linda, when you were in Alaska?
Well, yeah, when I was in Alaska, I would walk to school in the snow in the winter with the berms up over to my shoulders. The snow berms. Yeah, it was a big deal. And it would be dark when I came out of school. It would be like 3:00, it would be dark. I'm talking about the winter. We played in the summer. We didn't go to school in the summer. But in the winter months, yes, I walked to school. It was only a couple of blocks, and there were only like 60 people in my high school.
Wow. So wait a minute. So you went to school in the winter and played
in Alaska. When I lived in Haines, Alaska, I went to the public school there, and there were a total of 60 people in the high school, maybe 160 altogether, kids and so forth. But the town was only 2,000 people.
Wow.
And, you walked everywhere. You could walk to
did you have a snowmobile, or did you have dogs?
Well, some people had snowmobiles, but, it was a little town. You could walk. We had cars, but as a kid, as a teenager, I was walking. I didn't have a car. Yeah. But it was dangerous roads in the wintertime. One time my mom, we had a house on the hill, and she backed out of the drive, and the car kept going, and she went down the hill backwards, and slid into town. I'm serious.
I've done that. I've gone up and down in my Toyota Corolla up to a friend's resort, and it snowed. And I went up the hill, and because it was bumped, like the way there was no traction, I slid back down. And then I started thinking, well, this is fun. Let me do it again. And then I went sideways. I did eventually got to the top. And then I realized, like, you're actually really stupid. You need to stop doing this. But I thought it was fun. But anyway, yeah, it was fun. So, Katie, what about you? In New Orleans, did you walk to school?
Grade school, I was about 8 blocks. I was going to parochial school, and it was about 8-block walk, and didn't think anything of it those days. And then high school, I was only like 3 blocks. I went to Holy Angels Academy, and I was just a 3-block walk from there. It's really hard to think of a good excuse when you're late, when you've only got 3 blocks to walk. I had a lot of detentions for that.
we turned the sprinklers, because all my friends lived on the same street. We'd all walk to each other's houses. And so what I did is I turned the sprinklers on, and then we all suddenly, oops, we walked through the sprinklers. We couldn't possibly go to school in wet clothes. Well, Nancy was like, oh, by the time you'll get there, it'll be dry. And you walk through them. If it's your fault, not the sprinkler's fault, you're going to school. Do you want me to call all the parents? We didn't win. But I thought that was my excuse, but it didn't. But anyway, I did leave partway through the day and then later got caught for that too. But anyway, Peggy, what about you? Walking to school? Did you do that in Chicago?
I did, and it seemed like it was quite a long walk. I went to parochial school in the city, and I had to cross some pretty busy roads to get there when I was in second and third grade. But my parents sent me out, and I walked to school all by myself in the city, and I thought nothing of it at the time. But it's just a different time today, I guess.
Yeah.
I walked to school pretty much or biked to school up until I think I got my first car at 16 for my sweet 16th
Uh-oh.
birthday. And
Ooh.
so then I switched and drove everywhere.
But I think there's something about walking to school that actually gives you a little bit more independence than if you're always driven. I
Right.
see kids in the back with their little phones and their little things, and I wonder about, like, I always had to walk or do something you had to be part of whatever you were doing. And I wonder about that giving a self some kind of independence. Linda, I know you hike a lot, you walk a lot. Do you think, even just going back to those formative years of being in school and walking, that you had this sense of, I know how to walk? Whereas some kids don't know.
Right. I think I know where you're going.
And I'm not knocking anything of today. I'm just saying there was a different time, like what Peggy was saying.
Right. I'm not afraid to walk alone. And the other thing about when I was in Alaska was I did hike in nature quite a bit, and you develop a sense of self-reliance and independence. And that's one of the really nice things that I got from living in Alaska. And here I see the kids, they're lined up with their SUVs 2 miles long to pick up the kids at school. It's like, I guess we call them helicopter parents, where they're really overprotecting the kids to the point where the kids don't have a chance to really grow and evolve and mature. But I don't have any kids. So I don't have to deal with that.
She could say that. Katie, what about you? Because you go out in nature quite a bit too. I mean, you paddle. You'd paddle to school. I know you'd kayak through alligators if you wanted to go to school.
Yeah. Well, in New Orleans, I was in the city, so we didn't, it was all the Ninth Ward when I was mostly in school. And but now I have no problem. I'll go camping by myself. You take my papa, and it's usually I'll camp in a state park or something like that. And I've never been afraid of, heading coach. Now there's places in Jacksonville where I would not go by myself at night. I wrote a tour piece it was for a London company actually, and it was supposed to be a walking tour. And there is a really neat museum, which is over a homeless shelter in not the safest part of Jacksonville. I mean, we've had 6 killings in the past couple of days in Jacksonville. So,
Jesus,
depending where you are, it's, here in Clay County, I don't have any problem.
Yeah, but if you'd paddle with alligators and say that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're in less danger from wildlife than you are from people. Let's face it. I mean, an animal is only going to come after you if it's hungry and wants food, mostly. And most of the alligators are too small to want to eat me, so yeah. I don't have any problem with that. Well, it's a different story sometimes.
Well, we're hoping to come see you too on our way through sometime through Florida. I know we'll be there for sure next year, but Glenn, you do a lot of walking tours with your guests. Do they want to go on like historic tours or go through nature? Because you've got like Petter's Way. Tell everybody at Petter's Way, because that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, Petter's Way is a Roman road that goes for quite a lot of miles, and it connects up with the North Norfolk coastal route as well. So you can literally walk for weeks. So you can walk along a Roman road and then go all the way around the coast. In fact, you can walk all the way around the coast of England if you want to. England, Scotland, Wales.
I want to do that.
All the way around. And
you could just go from bed and breakfast to bed and breakfast, right?
Exactly. I mean, we're so fortunate in that, you know, we have got the opportunity to do those sorts of things. And, you know, even just walking around the coastline of Norfolk, you're going to go along places that are really beautiful rocky cliffs. You've got really beautiful sandy beaches. You've got salt marshes, and you've got bird reserves, all within Norfolk coastline, you know. So you've got such a vast difference within a few miles. And like I say, you've got the Roman road as well, which is a fantastic route to walk, because you're walking along roads where Roman soldiers used to walk.
Do you think the Cornwall coast is as nice as what you just described?
Cornwall is gorgeous because it's so rocky and it's so wild, because you're out over the Atlantic as well, you know. So you've got the rockiness, but you've also got the nice beaches as well in Cornwall. You know, so all parts of England are so different, you know, but I do love Cornwall. Cornwall is a beautiful area. And that's where Poldark, if you've seen Poldark on the television, that's where that was filmed. And that is so wild, you know, it's really wild out there.
Well, it's on my list if I can ever get across the pond.
Well,
she'll make it. She'll make it. She'll make it. I know she will. I know. I know Linda can't sit still that long at all. But okay, so in closing, it's fall. One question. I know, Glenn, did I miss October 2nd? You said there was something.
Just very quickly, October the 2nd, 1766. Just picture it, right? You're in the middle of Nottingham, which is where Robin Hood came from. And the farmers have had a really bad harvest, so everything has gone up in price at the market. And all of the peasants are revolting because everything is too expensive for them. Does it remind you of anything at the moment? Anyway, the peasants all went to Nottingham, and the farmers had put the price up of all their wares. And the peasants got so angry that they had what was called the Nottingham Cheese Riots of 1766. And
no way.
Cheese riot. There were cheeses flying everywhere. And I mean, they were great big round, we called them wheels, great big round cheeses. And they were stealing all the cheeses off the stalls. And they actually hijacked a boat, a whole ship, where they were going to take all these cheeses to another part of the country. And these peasants all came along and stole all the cheeses. And I just thought, what a fantastic story. You know, so the 2nd of October, 1766, and the Nottingham Cheese Riots.
That's crazy.
I would have been there.
That's crazy. That is crazy. And then, okay, I love that. I mean, because, well, isn't that, we went through some riots here, even just for tomatoes, I think it was. Something about getting fresh tomatoes. We've had the riots for food. I mean, if you, like, listen, if they said we can't have cheese here in this country, like no more cheese, I'm leaving, or I will riot. I mean, I'll be more political than ever.
Ever.
Books.
It is just like the banning of books, which is ridiculous. What were you saying? Who was saying that Anne Frank got banned? Was it you, Katie?
Oh, yes. Diary of Anne Frank got banned in Florida.
That's ridiculous.
We've got to keep our historic books out there, you know.
It's so sad. My books most of them would be banned because, well, especially my Civil War books, because I have a Black character in there, one of my main characters, telling the story from his point of view. That wouldn't go over too good here in Florida.
Well, you better not tell the national public.
It's an interesting, and incidentally, it ties in, Glenn, with the third book in that series is dealing with almost factually my great-great-grandfather, who had come over from Dundee, Scotland to New Orleans, and he worked on building cannon during the Civil War. And he also is supposedly the one who built the mystery submarine that's in Baton Rouge Museum, and did a lot of research on that one. I've never been to Dundee, but I'd love to go there.
The Battle of Dundee is a big deal. That is. Wow. All right. Wow.
Was it
What
as good
is?
as the cheese riots of Nottingham though? That's what
I don't know, but I don't know. Peggy, I know you had some history you wanted to share on Pinot Noir, because why not? It's a season for Pinot. It's
Well,
always
it's
the season.
actually our Petite Syrah, which is one
Oh,
of your
sorry.
favorites, right? And it comes from a grape called De Reef, which was founded in 1880 by a French botanist, Francois De Reef, and he in Montpellier, France, about 1880, I guess. And it was a cross between Syrah and a really rare kind of grape called uh, Pelerson. I'm not certain exactly the correct pronunciation, but he put the two grapes together and created this what's called de Reef. It failed in France. It just did not take off, and Charles MacIver from the U.S. was over there and brought some back to California in the late 1800s, 1880, early 1880s, something like that, and planted it in the ground, and it did beautifully. And so that they changed the name from De Reef to Petite Sirah, and it's planted all over now, all over the U.S. and has done well. And the big difference between obviously California and France is the sun. We have a lot more days of sunny weather, and it has just taken off. And of course, we love it down in Arizona at our vineyard. That is our prized grape, is our Petite Sirah. So, yeah, kind of a fun history.
Good time of year to have some too. Like I said, it's always good. In closing, I want to thank you each for joining us. But in closing, your perfect October day, where would you go? What are you going to eat and drink? Like, are you going to have a picnic? Are you going to go to a restaurant? Like, where are you going in the world? Okay. And if you could sit down and spend it with anyone alive or passed on, who would it be? I mean, maybe, Linda wants to hang out with Isabella Bird. Maybe Glenn wants to hang out with the Nottingham cheese riotist. Who knows? Katie might want to spend it with a black cat that went after the black dog. I don't know. Peggy's chasing after the Petite Sirah. I don't know. She's already got it. But let's see, so it's going to be, who are you going to spend that special October day with? Where are you going? And what are you eating and drinking? Are you going to go picnicking? What's in the picnic basket? We want to know. Or if you're going to a restaurant, what are you eating and drinking with this special person? So let's start with you, Katie.
Well, for October, my next trip is going to be to Lafayette in the middle of October. So I know I will be eating good, and I know I will probably be eating more seafood than is good for me, but it will be good seafood.
So Lafayette, Louisiana.
Right.
So who do you want to spend time with there?
Ooh. I'm not sure it's a press trip, and I'm not sure who I'm going to be with on it.
But hypothetically,
I think some people I know it's for an info trip. I think, Linda, you're in info, I think, aren't you?
I'm sorry?
No, she was thinking that you're the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association.
Yeah.
I'm with the National Association of Travel Journalists. NAJA.
Okay, I was in that one, but now I'm not in that one now, but I'm in info, but this was an info trip. So It's going to be people that I either know or, kind of know personally, I know online.
That's fun.
So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, Lafayette.
So I know it's going to be a good trip.
They have Zydeco breakfast.
Right. That's I'm trying to remember the name of the place that's at, but I've been to one of those, and that is so much fun. It's as much fun watching the dancing as it is eating the food.
And you're going to be doing the forget it. I can't pronounce it. The National Wildlife Refuge there. It's one of the biggest ones, the heritage area with the water. You're going to be in the bayou, the Atchafalaya.
Oh, Atchafalaya. Yeah, Atchafalaya Basin. Oh, we probably will end up doing a swamp tour on that with some alligators, of course.
Yay! All right,
Alligators.
I've got to get to see an alligator before we see Peggy.
Well,
So
you
you're
come
gonna.
down here, I can get you where you'll see an alligator for sure.
All right. Yeah, and
And
listen,
I've
we
got
got to
a
go to St.
kayak.
Mark's,
Got a couple
St. Mark.
inflatable kayaks we can take out too if you like inflatable ones.
especially with alligators. We definitely like
Yeah,
it.
I had a friend. We were doing a press trip, the RV trip, and she's from Michigan, and it was right at the end of mating season. You could kind of hear them barking in the background, and we were in Alexander Springs in Marion County, and Ocala National Forest. And it's perfectly clear water. You can see the bottom. And we were kayaking there in my little inflatables. And she kept saying, "Are you sure we're safe?" And they're not going to bother us. And
Well, there
didn't.
was a crocodile under the Pompano Beach.
Probably got to be really far south to get the crocodiles. Down
It
around
did.
the Everglades is about the only place you'll find
Well,
them.
it was a rare sighting just happened. A crocodile under the Pompano Pier in Pompano Beach just
Okay,
happened.
that's weird because it must have probably gotten out from a refuge or something.
Yeah, something
Because
happened. But all right.
now in Everglades National Forest, they're all native wildlife crocodiles there. I actually
Yeah.
got a picture of one many years ago.
There's
Not
crocodiles
very
and
close.
alligators. Yeah, depending on which side of the swamp you go. I love it.
Yeah.
Everyone, KatieWalls.com. You can also go to AmericanRoads.net, AmericanRoads.net, but KatieWalls.com for her books. Don't forget 20% off on Ghost Books, her Ghost Books. And Linda Ballou, I want to go to you. What's your perfect October day? Who are you hanging out with?
Well, I'm going to make a run up the Central Coast and go to Schooner's, my favorite seafood restaurant there. And I have some friends on the coast that I will visit. And a couple of them live up in Paso Robles, which is a really lovely place to be in the fall. And it is wine country, Peggy.
Good wine.
I'm going to, it will be lovely because it's harvest time up there. It's very agricultural. And I think it'll be just perfect time to be there. And
Awesome.
I gotta have some pumpkin pie. I'm sorry, I gotta have some pumpkin pie while I'm in that neck of the woods.
Well, sounds good.
You know,
Why not? Pumpkin
maybe
pie.
some apple and maybe some apple crisp.
Oh, there you go. Apple. You got to keep with the apples, Again, everyone, Linda's a new podcast, Lost Angel Travel Adventures, starts the third Wednesday of October, which is the 18th of October. So stay tuned for that at bigblendradio.com, and also follow her at lostangeladventures.com and lindaballouauthor.com. Peggy is on every first Wednesday, so stay tuned for her next episode that talks all about dessert and wine pairings for the fall, kind of like what we're talking about today, but she goes in depth and teaches us how to settle with wine. But Peggy, what is your favorite October day? Where are you going?
I would love to go someplace where the leaves are all changing. So somewhere like Vermont, which I've never been before, and I just have such fond memories as a kid in Illinois, running through all the piles of leaves and stuff. So I think it would be a girlfriend's weekend that we would go play in the leaves and look at the foliage and drink lots of wine and just tell stories. So I think that's what I would do. One of these
Nice.
days, I definitely want to get it done. Even in Arizona, I know people don't believe it, but we recognize the change in seasons, and there are great places to see the trees change in Arizona. But even in the urban areas, when you're a native, you can tell when it's fall, and you can tell when it's winter, and the smell of the air and the change in the foliage, even in the desert, changes. And I mean, it's actually beautiful when you really look at the nuances of the change of the seasons in the desert. It's pretty
And if you
exciting.
had rain, you get ocotillos in bloom. And, there's a whole other season of flowers, especially in the southeast Arizona, like where your vineyard is. And there are fall colors up in those mountains. And the cactus. Oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait to go home a little bit and hang out in the desert for a little bit. But Glenn, let's go over to you in England. What is your perfect October day? Is a cheese scone involved?
Well, there would be, but it would have to be the 6th of October because that's Diane's birthday.
That's right. That's right.
Cannot forget her birthday.
We said we were going to make sure to give her a shout out for her birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday to my darling wife. I better say that.
Awesome.
But actually, what I would like is something that we do quite regularly during the year anyway, and that's go to Wells, which is one of our seaside towns, and we have fish and chips on the wall of the quayside. So we're sitting on the wall outside the fish and chip shop, and we're looking out over the quayside, which is where they land the boats with all the fish, and we see all the stuff going on. And the kids are looking out over the side of the quayside catching crabs. So, what can be better than just sitting outside eating fish and chips with your wife, eh?
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, everyone, thank you so much. Everyone keep up with Glenn at norfolk-tours.co.uk. I know it's late over in England as we record here. Thank you all for joining us, and happy October to everyone celebrating their birthday this week or this month. It's your birthday. It's your birthday. So take care, everyone. And of course, keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. We're here every Sunday of the month. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We want to give a big shout out to our friends over at the Peanut Patch in Yuma, Arizona. They're typically open from October through April every year, and they are reopening for the season this October 2nd, Monday, October 2nd, 2023. It is a popular destination to visit and buy nuts and peanuts, homemade peanut brittle, homemade fudge, homemade peanut butter, chocolates, confections, snacks, all those delicious old-fashioned candies, dried fruits, locally grown medjool dates, gourmet gifts like salsas and relishes and jams, syrups, preserves, olives. Whew, are we hungry yet? They're also known for creating custom and themed gift baskets and gift tins because, hey, it's almost the holiday season, so check them out. Either visit them in Yuma, Arizona, or visit them online and shop online at thepeanutpatch.com. Thanks for listening to Big Blend Radio's Big Weekly Blend podcast. You can keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com. And if you want to get our Big Weekly Blend magazine, just sign up for our newsletter at blendradioandtv.com.